Direct News TV. December 2, 2023. Israel-Gaza war live, no negotiations now on truce, Hamas. A Hamas official tells Al Jazeera negotiations on prisoner exchanges are now over and will not resume until Israel halts its attack and hands over all Palestinian prisoners. Israel ordered its Mossad negotiating team in Doha to return to Israel because of what it called an impasse. Red Crescent receives ambulances from Saudi Arabia. The PRCS has said that Saudi Arabia donated 7 ambulances to add to its fleet and that they were delivered by the Egyptian Red Crescent through the Rafah border crossing. A night of horror, Palestinians describe Israeli attacks. Abu Wael Nasrallah, 80, says he and his displaced family will stay put in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza because they have already lost everything in Israel's bombardment. There is nothing left to fear. Our homes are gone, our property is gone, our money is gone, our sons have been killed, some are handicapped. What is left to cry for? A mother of 4 who gave her name as Samira said she fled south from Gaza City with her children after Israel began bombing there last month. They now shelter with friends in a home west of Khan Yunis. She said Friday night was one of the most terrifying since she arrived, a night of horror. She and other residents said they feared the intensity of the bombing in Khan Yunis and the nearby city of Deir el-Balah means an Israeli ground invasion of the south is imminent. Released Israelis call for rest of captives to be freed. Israelis released in the past week by Hamas from Gaza have called for their fellow captives left behind to be freed. Tens of thousands of people gathered at a rally in Tel Aviv outside Israel's defense headquarters, where they cheered Yelena Trupanov, 50, standing on a stage just 2 days after being freed. I came to thank you because without you, I wouldn't be here. Now we must bring back my son, Sasha and everyone. Now. Similar pleas from other released hostages were shown on video. We will continue till the end, PM Netanyahu. Israel's prime minister says military pressure as well as diplomatic efforts helped get the captives released. At a press conference, Netanyahu said the war will continue until we achieve all our goals, which is getting the captives back and eliminating Hamas. The ground operation is necessary to achieve the aforementioned goals. Netanyahu added soldiers were fighting in line with international humanitarian law. This is a long-term war, but we will win this war at the end of the day, he said. Our soldiers prepared during the days of truce for total victory against Hamas. No place to go, Israel's military targets Khan Yunis. Israel has dropped leaflets with evacuation orders over towns east of Khan Yunis. One Khan Yunis resident said a neighbor received a call from the Israeli army warning that houses in the area would be hit and everyone should leave. We told them, we have nothing here. Why do you want to strike it, said the resident, Hikmat al-Qidra, adding that the homes were destroyed. The leaflets generated panic and confusion, especially in the crowded south. Unable to go to northern Gaza or neighboring Egypt, their only escape is to move around a 220 sq km, 85 sq mile area. There is no place to go, said Ahmad Hajar, who fled with his wife and 3 children from the north a month ago to Khan Yunis. They expelled us from the north, and now they are pushing us to leave the south. The Israeli military has divided the Gaza Strip into 2,300 blocks and is now sending SMS messages to residents telling them to leave before they launch strikes, which they say will eliminate Hamas. 17 women and children still held in Gaza, Gallant. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Hamas had violated the truce by refusing to release these captives. The Israeli army said on Friday that 136 people are still being held in Gaza. Gallant also said, the army has resumed fighting in Gaza and will continue until it crushes Hamas's military and recovers the hostages. As the military operation expands, our pressure on Hamas increases. We eliminated a large number of Hamas leaders. We killed a large number of terrorists, arrested hundreds and destroyed many Hamas headquarters. Recovering 110 hostages is an unprecedented achievement. Maximum effort to protect Gaza civilians, Israeli official. Mark Regev, a senior advisor to Netanyahu, says Israel does not want to see Gaza civilians caught in the crossfire as it seeks to fulfill its pledge to wipe out Hamas. Israel is targeting Hamas, a brutal terrorist organization that has committed the most horrific violence against innocent civilians. Israel is making a maximum effort to safeguard Gaza's civilians, Regev insisted. When the war is over, Israel will seek a security envelope with special zones and arrangements to prevent Hamas from being positioned on its border, he said. 100 aid trucks enter Gaza, Red Crescent. The Palestine Red Crescent says the vehicles, which entered the besieged coastal enclave through the Rafah border crossing, contain food, water and medical supplies. It is the first convoy of aid trucks to go through the Rafah crossing since fighting resumed. Israel pulls Mossad negotiators from Qatar after impasse over captives. Israel has pulled its Mossad negotiators from Qatar, which along with Egypt and the United States is mediating talks to secure a renewed pause in the war. Following the impasse in the negotiations and at the direction of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, David Barnea, head of the Mossad, ordered his team in Doha to return to Israel, Netanyahu's office said in a statement. No truce negotiations now, Hamas. The deputy head of Hamas's political bureau, Salah al-Arauri, tells Al Jazeera there will be no prisoner-captive exchange as long as the onslaught on Gaza continues. There are no negotiations now on the truce. There will be no prisoner exchange until the aggression ends and there is a comprehensive and definitive ceasefire, he said. The occupation insists there are still women and children being held, but we said we have handed all of them over. The remaining prisoners in Gaza are soldiers and civilian men who served in the occupation army. Our Zionist prisoners will not be liberated until all our prisoners are freed and a ceasefire takes hold. The resistance is ready for all Israeli military scenarios, whether ground war, air or other. The Palestine Red Crescent's head of emergency services, Ahmed Jibril, says the injured have been taken to different hospitals across the occupied West Bank. Israeli forces raided Beita, south of Nablus, wounding 7 people with live ammunition while 31 were treated for tear gas inhalation, 2 of them children. A Palestinian man died and a Red Crescent ambulance was prevented at an Israeli military checkpoint from evacuating him. A 15-year-old was injured in Jabba, near Jenin, and a 14-year-old was shot in Al-Yaman, also in the Jenin area. We reported earlier that a child was wounded in Awarda. 3 more were shot by live ammunition in Karawat Bani Hassan and taken to hospital. Israel, Palestine and Canada's schizophrenic foreign policy. Montreal, Canada, unlike its powerful neighbor and Israel's foremost backer, the U.S., Canada says it aims to tread the middle ground in its policy on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It supports a two-state solution, opposes illegal Israeli settlements in the occupied territories and says international law must be respected by all parties. But experts say Canada has 2 policies when it comes to the conflict, one on paper and one in practice. They note Canada has cast UN votes against its own stated positions and opposed Palestinian efforts to seek redress at the International Criminal Court. They argue it has backed hardline Israeli policies and failed to hold the country accountable for human rights abuses. More than 1,300 doctors urge U.S. to push for Gaza ceasefire. In a letter sent to the U.S. President and congressional leaders, MedGlobal and more than 1,300 doctors and medical workers, primarily from the U.S., have called for the release of captives in Gaza and the flow of emergency humanitarian and medical aid into the besieged coastal enclave. MedGlobal is a U.S.-based humanitarian organization that provides emergency response and health programs around the world. The letter lays out the need for clean water, fuel and medical assistance for the 2.3 million people in Gaza. It also calls for leaders to push Egypt and Israel to open all borders for aid distribution. MedGlobal's president and the letter's principal signatory, Dr. Zahir Sawal, said, "The doctors working in Gaza have given a tremendous amount, and taken on real risk, saving as many lives as they could in the face of crippling grief and danger. Policymakers should take this as a clear sign that a permanent truce isn't about politics, it's about human rights. Truce talks at a stalemate, but discussions continue. A source with knowledge of the talks confirms to Al Jazeera that negotiations had been held earlier in the day between Qatari negotiators and a Mossad team in Qatar. Several rounds of discussions have been held on a renewed humanitarian pause in Gaza. Talks have hit a stalemate, but negotiators are working to get past it. A revival of the parameters of the 7-day truce is on the table. Both sides accuse each other of causing the pause to collapse. Talks have taken up further captives who could be released. In addition to older male captives, there is discussion on other types of prisoners, including male and female Israeli soldiers. Hamas has shown a willingness for an all-for-all prisoner deal, but no headway yet. My name is Kingsley. Please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to be notified whenever we post. You won't regret it.